Hello, hello everyone. This is chapter 6 of the Good Omens fan fiction Ineffable Nights, and this chapter is titled Rescue Me. As he moaned in absolute revulsion as he kicked out at a rat that scurried across the cream-colored toe of his shoe. Well, it had been cream-colored before he had been abducted, beaten, dragged through the dirt and filth, and then tossed into this dank, slime-coated dungeon to await his fate. His pants and coat were likewise ruined, and he was sure it would take days of scrubbing to get the stench of unholy funk off of his person. When the troop of fallen had shown up at his post, Azzy had honestly tried to reason with them, thinking that if they were anything like Crow, perhaps he could have a civil discussion about this whole business. Well, they weren't like Crow. No more than a diseased rat was anything like a cute puppy. When they had begun to chuckle and mutter among themselves as they eyed him, and one hideous black-eyed fellow, who rather resembled a toad, started withdrawing manacles from his saddlebag, Azzy had bolted. He had surprised them with the move, but of course he had known he wasn't going to be able to outrun 6 men on horseback. He hadn't been trying to escape, really, but what Crow had said about the fallen hating beautiful and pure things echoed in his mind, and he had to be sure that whatever happened to him, he gave Eve, his mare, a way to avoid torment. He had thankfully made it to the stable and flung open her stall door while waving his arms around and yelling like a madman. The white mare had bolted out, and upon seeing 6 hellfire steeds bearing down upon her, she had swerved and headed down the road toward Celestia as if she had wings. Azzy had smiled then, even as the hideous fallen had descended on him and begun to beat and kick him mercilessly. At least his horse wasn't going to be tortured or torn apart regardless of what happened to him. And when she'd reached Celestia, riderless, it would alert the knights that something wasn't right at the post on the eastern road. As they had clamped the cursed manacles onto his wrists and forced his aching, bleeding body to stand and march before them into the cursed forest, Azzy still smiled. As the hellfire flames began to lick up the walls of his post, Azzy had even dared to hope that a rescue party of celestial knights would be sent to save him from whatever evil plans the fallen had. That had been 6 agonizing days ago. Many beatings and torture sessions later, Azzy was no longer smiling. It would have taken a few hours for Eve to reach the main gates of Celestia. All of the blessed steeds for the celestial knights were trained to return straight home should something happen to their rider, so he was sure she would have done so. It would have taken a day and a half of hard riding to reach the kingdom of the fallen from there. A rescue attempt, therefore, should have happened days ago. That meant no one was coming. They'd already written him off as a loss. He was on his own here in this musty, disgusting dungeon, with his once-a-day feeding of moldy bread and brackish water, and he'd be here until he escaped, or... Azzy stared down at the cursed chains that bound his wrists and ankles. Chains that had resisted every bit of holy magic he'd tried so far. Or he'd be here until they actually tortured him to death. The fallen seemed convinced he knew all of the celestial attack plans and were determined to beat the secret knowledge out of him, no matter how many times he explained he was only a low-level guard and not privy to any such knowledge. Azzy got the impression that most of the fallen either weren't very bright, or they knew he was telling the truth, but simply delighted in brutalizing him anyway. In reality, both things were very true of these particular fallen.
"Oh, Angel,"
As he cringed as a voice like grinding teeth floated to him from the darkness outside his cell. It was the fallen who tortured him most often, a big, ugly brute that looked as if his mother must have been a giant lizard. He thought the fiend's name was Liger, but he wasn't sure.
"We've got a special treat for you today, boy."
Sickly green eyes blinked at Azzy outside of the bars.
"We just got our head torturer back. I always said his skills were wasted when he left to join the border guards, but just so happens he must have missed the screams, and he came back. Oh, he's going to have fun with your soft celestial body. Ha 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 ha."
The croaking laughter made Azzy's gut twist, and if he'd had anything to vomit up, he would have. Anything that filled the fiend Liger with so much joy was going to be awful. He wondered faintly if this would be the day that he died. He wondered what hideous torments were in store for him from the hand of the fallen's chosen head torturer. As all of the fallen seemed to be very good at it, this man must have done some unthinkable things to have earned the distinction of the best of the lot. Golden eyes with slitted pupils popped up beside Liger's pea-green soup ones.
"Right, okay, Liger, I'll take it from here."
And that is the end of part 1 of chapter 6.